Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time we have unboxing of the HUAWEI Pura 80 Ultra. Let's get started. This device truly represents the pinnacle of what HUAWEI is capable of offering us at this moment. Taking into account the numerous restrictions imposed by the United States, it's clear that it operates at a disadvantage. However, let's examine what it is bringing to the table. The price is significantly high while recording this video, and it has been since its launch. The price of 31,999 pesos, although you know that HUAWEI usually handles many promotions and gifts, and at least in Mexico they offer us the FreeBuds Pro 4, 8-hour with Wi-Fi 7, and also HUAWEI Care Plus for 12 months, so it is a guarantee. Far more advanced. Additionally, they provide up to 24 months of interest-free payments and multiply your HUAWEI points by 10%, allowing you to use them for future purchases. However, it's clear that this device, while very attractive, won't be affordable for everyone. In the description below, you'll find a link to the official store where all these promotions are available. Now, let's proceed to unbox the cell phone so we can. First, begin with it, because currently, it's quite striking how the box is so perfectly square. It's not like a traditional box at all. HUAWEI uses this for premium devices. Immediately, we encounter the cell phone, and you can already notice that it features a camera module that occupies nearly half of the phone. It's quite impressive how large this module is. Let's remove it from its cover, and you'll also observe how reflective the back cover is. In this instance, I have the gold color edition. I believe it is available in another color as well, but it is undoubtedly very attractive and eye-catching. You pull this phone out of your pocket, and instantly, you're going to attract attention. There's absolutely no chance they won't notice it. Now, let's power on this phone while we check out what else is included in the box. Right here, we're going to find a case, which is something we really appreciate. So, if you're not a fan of the super reflective finish it has, it's not a big issue because the case is designed with style. It's not just a plain, transparent, unattractive case that eventually turns yellow. It's actually quite nice. Could you tell me how you would use it? Would you prefer it without a case or with a case? Personally, I think this time I'm leaning towards choosing the design that includes the holster. Even though it does become a bit thicker and apparently a bit heavier, yet I believe it provides a pleasing aesthetic in addition to offering a solid level of protection. Nevertheless, keep in mind that the camera module is extremely large. Although this case attempts to protect it, the raised edge here is even more pronounced than the camera itself, giving it extra protection. I think it'll help you defend well, even in some falls. To the camera setup, for those reasons and many others, I would definitely choose to use it with a case, but I'm curious to know your thoughts in the comments, so please justify your answer below. Inside the box, we will find the usual papers, the key to remove the tray, and also the charger and cable. In my situation, I have a review unit, so the box is not the one that corresponds to the Mexican market. In this scenario, if a charger is included, it's interesting to note that in Mexico, it no longer comes with a charger. So this can vary based on the country where you decide to purchase it. The charger that HUAWEI recommends would be this one with 100 watts, featuring dual outputs for both USB-A and USB-C depending on your specific needs. The cable that comes included is USB-C to USB-C, which indeed provides us with a satisfactory experience. It's incredibly modern. However, HUAWEI does this because this very charger can also be used to connect your computer or even your tablet. Thus, it's compatible with various devices. Although HUAWEI's intention is that you can only use one connector at any given time, and that's precisely why they place them in this strategic manner. So, that is the content we have included inside the box. Now, let's shift our attention and focus on the phone itself. And, well, we have this device set up right over here, so let's take a more detailed look at its specifications and go on a tour of its most notable features. It has a thickness of 8.3 millimeters and weighs approximately 233.5 grams. HUAWEI certainly doesn't focus on making the thinnest and lightest cell phones, unlike what we often see with Samsung, for instance. This is something I actually appreciate, especially in the Ultra model. In the Ultra model, I do not want them to make any kind of sacrifice. I want them to give me the best of the best, even if it is a device a little thick and heavy, so thank you, HUAWEI. We will also find IP69 as the maximum level of resistance against water, although in this case, unlike other manufacturers, HUAWEI does not include an underwater photography mode or something similar. Then it is not so daring in that aspect, but it is definitely appreciated to see this tremendous level of resistance. And speaking of resistance at the front, it comes equipped with the latest generation Kunlun glass, which is designed to withstand falls exceptionally well. I'm not sure if you've noticed yet, but it features 4 curves much like a smartwatch, with curved edges on the sides, as well as on the top and bottom. This design ensures that the sensation of scrolling on this screen is going to be quite enjoyable. However, it's important to mention that it comes with a factory applied screen protector, and you might feel it slightly at the edges when you slide your finger over the screen. But, well, you choose if you want comfort or want more security and resistance. The screen is 6.8 inches in its diagonal. It offers us OLED technology with variable refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz. It also offers a very high dimming rate for low brightness that goes up to 1440 Hz, making flickering imperceptible. Its resolution is 2848 x 1276 pixels. So in this sense, we are definitely looking at a display of excellent quality. It also features stereo sound, which, by the way, is of outstanding quality. It offers excellent power and strong low-frequency output. Note that both the headset section for calls and the top frame have audio output. So far, there are no noticeable restrictions from the United States. The product is very comprehensive. The front camera is 13 megapixels with an f2 aperture and autofocus. Something particularly special to note is that this is a camera featuring a remarkably wide lens. However, notice how in the preview, it presents a sufficiently well-balanced result between lights and shadows. Although after you take the picture, the result becomes even more attractive. And of course, it's important to consider that the screen is equipped with HDR technology, which enhances realism in the display of your photos. So notice how the brightness rises significantly in the brightest areas. Furthermore, the level of detail it achieves is, in my opinion, absolutely astonishing. In this situation, we have the option disabled that lets us capture images at 25 megapixels, which means you could potentially have even more incredible detail. At the rear, we have three cameras. First, there's the ultra-wide-angle camera with 40 megapixels, featuring an f2.2 aperture and autofocus capabilities. Next, we have the main camera, which boasts a massive 1-inch sensor designed to capture a significant amount of light with a 50 megapixel resolution. It's important to point out that this camera has a variable aperture. So when I close the aperture and when it's more open, you can see the difference. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I believe it's noticeable. It can range from f1.6 to f4.0. This makes it a truly spectacular camera. The dual telephoto camera is the highlight. These two lenses share the same sensor. However, one camera uses a cutout within the sensor, which is unusual. The first telephoto camera provides a 3.7x optical zoom featuring an 83mm lens with an f2.4 aperture and sensor shift optical stabilization. Next, the second telephoto camera with 9.4x zoom. To be precise, it is a 212mm camera that utilizes 12.5 megapixels from the identical sensor. Therefore, it includes optical stabilization, even though it cannot use the entire 50 megapixels. Additionally, we have focus assist right here. Furthermore, there is a 155 megapixel ultra chroma camera to enhance color accuracy. The most suitable example to discuss color accuracy with automatic white balance is this table. For example, I have here with me the iPhone 16 and this Huawei device. You can notice how in these environments where color rendition is quite challenging due to the dominance of one color throughout the entire scene, Huawei manages to render it much more accurately. On the other hand, the iPhone tends to make the colors appear much paler. Therefore, it seems to me that Huawei does a very good job in such environments. Now, let's take a closer look at the pictures. Take a look here with the Ultra camera. I find the result to be truly spectacular. It captures very high quality pictures. Next, you're viewing the main camera, which also takes a very detailed and nice photograph. I must emphasize that in this instance, the 25 megapixel mode is turned off. Now observe the crop within the sensor for a 210 optical zoom quality. It's brutal once more. Next, the 89mm perspective with the number one telephoto camera. And once more, you will notice that the image quality remains very good. Following that, we move on to 10 times zoom, where you might switch to the second telephoto camera. Here, you can see for yourself that the photography maintains a very high quality. However, this second telephoto camera, which boasts the largest optical range, is unable to fully utilize the 50 megapixels of the sensor. So now, we have the photography taken with 30 times zoom, which is the maximum level where I generally believe you will be using it, is where the quality is truly good. However, at the maximum zoom level, which is 100x in this case, it might fall somewhat short when compared to other devices that are entirely dedicated 100% to photographic quality. So this occurs because this second lens, as I mentioned, cannot utilize the full 50 megapixels of the sensor, but rather only a 12 megapixel section. I find this mechanism that Huawei has implemented to be quite ingenious and innovative, even though, like everything, it has its pros and cons. For video recording, we will find support for 4K, specifically up to 60 frames per second. Here, you are observing an example of how the device captures video. Starting with the ultra-wide camera, the quality is decent, though not a standout feature. We should be honest about that. The main camera, however, would perform well. Moving on to the intermediate telephoto camera, it's interesting to note that it won't utilize the second camera in this instance. I am unsure whether this is because of software limitations during the recording process or if they aim to prevent a pause when switching between the two lenses. In this situation, it involves a mechanical component that adjusts the sensor's position to utilize either the first lens or the second one. Observe how in the photograph when you zoom in, there is a moment when it switches to the second telephoto lens. Then, during that transition, there is a brief pause. Of course, it would be naturally impossible to avoid this in an implementation where the sensor shifts between one lens and another. This might be the reason why they haven't allowed the use of the second telephoto camera in video. Or it could also be due to the fact that it doesn't fully utilize all the sensor's information, as I was explaining. So I believe that while it's quite good for photography, it may have certain limitations when it comes to video. The battery provides a capacity of 5,170 mAh and it supports 100 watts charging. Additionally, it includes wireless charging and reverse wireless charging capabilities. Up to now, the only area where we've observed some limitations, which are due to US restrictions, is in the video recording quality. Here, the processor might fall a bit short. However, in all other aspects, it remains a highly premium product. However, the moment came for a significant drawback, and that is, in this case, it does not support 5G networks. The highest it can reach is 4G, which for many users is sufficiently fast. But naturally, given that this is such a pricey product, it is indeed quite unusual not to find 5G support included. Fortunately, it offers the option to add a SIM cards. Additionally, it's important to note that it comes equipped with EMUI 15, which is a new version of the operating system. However, unlike the Chinese variant that includes the latest version of Harmony OS, here we do not observe as many new features or enhancements. In fact, the operating system has been seen as quite similar over many years, experiencing only minor evolution. This is another result of the US restrictions. Huawei has significantly slowed down the development of MUI, concentrating its efforts on creating Harmony OS for the Chinese market. However, outside China, this new operating system remains unused. Therefore, in reality, it is quite limited in terms of introducing new features. Additionally, it's clear that installing applications will occur via App Gallery or other alternative stores. For instance, I've installed the Aurora store, which allows me to install most applications without any issues. Honestly, in this regard, it remains unchanged. I would suggest using it only if you see yourself as an experienced user who enjoys experimenting with installing apps from various sources. It has 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, so no worries there. Lastly, the processor is the 8-core Kirin 9020, but Geekbench detects 12 cores. Huawei employs a somewhat unusual implementation, and I believe Geekbench in particular doesn't recognize it accurately and fails to fully utilize it. Let's examine the results it provided us with. In single-core performance, it achieved 1,270 points, which is quite good. However, in multi-core performance, it delivered a rather low score of 4,434 points, which is practically comparable to that of a mid-range processor. But I feel Geekbench struggles to detect and utilize well the cores that this device has. In Antutu gave us the result of 1,153,119 points. Here it does look like a high-end processor, but not the most powerful at present. Other devices can exceed 2 million points. This clearly shows where its limitations are noticed. In the United States, it is not able to provide us with a fully flagship, ultra-powerful chip. It is perceived as a chip from about 2 years ago. Nevertheless, for most users, the power it possesses will be more than sufficient and it will suffice in numerous scenarios. However, it is evident that for gamers, for instance, it will fall short and acquiring this processor would not be advisable. Regardless, for the video review, we are planning to conduct specific tests to thoroughly analyze its performance in particular games. As we approach the conclusion of this video, remember that if you enjoyed it, you can show your appreciation and we'll catch up with you in the next one.